Welcome back to FURYCAST. But first, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and of course, smash the bell for notifications. And don't forget to sign up to the mailing list for my new graphic novel, illustrated by the world-famous Ebi Canales. Sign up now. The link is in the description. He's been a filmmaker for over a decade. He currently travels the country serving as a first AD. His directorial debut, the feature film Dark Ritual, was released in 2019. Today on FURYCAST, I welcome my friend, Chris Warren. What's going on, Chris?
Not much. How's it going?
Going pretty good. You're a native of the greater Houston area. I believe you're living out in the Spring area, correct?
I am. Yep.
And
born and raised in Houston. So
H-Town, baby. So what side of town were you raised on?
I was more South Houston. I was in Baytown.
Okay.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. I mean, little, it is what it is. It's Baytown. It's an oil town, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. But for those that don't know you, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself. You're a filmmaker, but tell them a little bit.
Yeah, I'm Chris, filmmaker. I'm assistant director. When I started all this, I wanted to be a director. That's still my goal, I've directed one feature, some web series, and a couple other things that are also in the works right now. And then, that's where I'm at. And I done a little bit of everything when it comes to the filmmaking journey, right? So,
as all of us in the independent film biz do, we do a little or a lot of bit of everything, really.
Absolutely, right.
I'm sure you've been crafty on your own set, right?
Oh yeah, multiple times. Yeah, actually, we did a little short for Cards Against Humanity. Had this film festival that just passed. And I was up in Michigan, and great guys up there, right? And they all came to me and were like, "Hey, let's do a short. Why not? Let's for a film festival." I was like, "All right, that's fine." And next thing you know, I'm out at Sam's buying crafty for the crew, so that way we can be able to have something. So
yeah, that's indie film style. But let's go back first, and so we get to know you a little bit. You were raised in the Baytown area. That's right outside of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
It's being raised in a manufacturing town, primarily focused on oil. It's that type of life that, most everybody, through school, most everybody was going to go be an operator or go work in the oil field, from a young age, I was basically raised in a theater. So I think there's a picture somewhere around here of me in a crib, that I was literally on stage in a theater.
Were your parents in the theater?
So my aunt was. My mom is very artistic. But she really didn't do much in the theater. And raising me as a single mom, she had to work a lot. So my aunt and my grandmother, who was also very artistic, raised me quite a bit. So it was one of those things where I went wherever they went, and so the theater was a primary place for a lot of it. So yeah, I've always kind of had a love for theater, still do, unfortunately being in film, it's kind of hard to go do plays and productions and stuff of that nature. But anytime me and the wife can go and see a show, I absolutely try to, because I still miss it. I love being in the theater. It's something about that smell when you walk into a theater. It's just brings me home. So
there's nothing like actors, you know what I mean? There's like a good group of actors that get together, it's always a good time.
Absolutely. And also on the technical side, that those guys, they really do a hell of a job, and they do some crazy work to make things happen. Especially now. Especially nowadays, because they have to try to contend with film, so they have to do some crazy stuff to make it interesting and captivating for the audience. So pretty cool. Pretty cool to see what all they do.
So you were raised by your mom. Your parents were divorced, I'm assuming?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
What time period are we talking here? Are we talking the 90s? What are we talking?
So I was born in 85. And so yeah, pretty much the 90s, the 90s are what I remember. 90s, early 2000s. So that was where my growing up and learning about film and learning about theater and getting into the arts basically was all around.
Would you
But
consider yourself, because I'd consider myself probably a latchkey kid, come home, lock the
yeah,
door behind you and try to entertain yourself. This was before internet, that's what, people read comics and I drew and I did all kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
What was it like for you?
It's the same way, I I fondly remember doing all that, and coming home and locking the door. And if my grandma or my aunt weren't around, because we always lived close by them. If they weren't around, I was in the house just, kind of fending for myself, but obviously there was food and everything. I didn't have to worry about that.
You had food?
But it was still, yeah, I know, right?
Lucky.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Lucky.
Right. Right. So at least there was that. But I mean, I was same thing. I was reading comics at a very young age, all kinds. I mean, I really fell into DC at a young age. There's a Superman plaque right up there. Yeah. He's kind of my favorite. My uncle introduced me to that and was like, "Hey, here you go. You need to start reading this stuff. You need to get into these things, And I had showed interest, but it was one of those where I was like, I don't know. And then, yeah, I mean, there was that. And then shortly after that, I started watching movies and, we had a TV. So I was like, well, yeah, at that point it was UPN, I don't know if you remember UPN.
Oh yeah.
Channel 20 and
a lot of comedies.
A lot of comedies, a lot of sitcoms. And then, at night they would have the B-side horror films, you know what I mean? That were really great to watch and just fun, and my mom caught me one night watching them, and she was like, well, you shouldn't be watching these. But at the same time, she was like, okay, I want to supervise this. Right. And she goes, you really like horror films? I was like, yeah. She goes, okay. And so we went to, it wasn't Blockbuster. It was another like family owned rental, video rental place basically. And, she goes, here, I want you to watch this. And, she picked up The Exorcist.
Oh Lord,
and
she just threw you in the deep end, bro.
Oh yeah, man. Man, it was crazy. And
was this
so I remember watching
was this
that.
kind of like you get caught smoking cigarettes? Your mom or dad makes you smoke a whole pack type situation?
Yeah.
She thought that would get you off of the horror movies if you just watched The Exorcist.
Yeah, it kind of was, but it backfired on her. I actually more so got into it and was just like, oh my God, how did they do that? That's insane. Like it's, it was all just really, really cool to watch. And basically, if I remember right, the thing I remember the most about that movie was when she came crawling down the stairs backwards, and I was like, how did they do that? I've got to figure this out. Right. And at that point, internet wasn't as widely available as it is now. You can't just go type in Exorcist, crawl down stairs. How did they do it? So it's like find magazines, find stuff, find anything I could find and just read up on it and stuff. And then so right after that, she then introduced me to the Nightmare series. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm 100% in. This is cool. And I really want to learn how to do this. Specifically Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors was the one that I was like, oh man, this is all my jam. Every bit of this is stuff that I'm into. And it was really cool. So.
How old were you at this time?
Let's see. I was 10 or 11, one of the two. Yeah. And then Lost Boys, I mean, she just kind of went down like a rabbit hole of every horror film she could find that was like, oh, well, this is okay. It's not terrible. And then my aunt also found out, and she was like, oh, well, you've got to watch Evil Dead. Like we've got to go down this rabbit hole now, So then I started watching Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. It was just, yeah, it was a whole thing, man. It was fun, but it was crazy at the same time, and I always look back on it as a kid, as an adult now, and looking back on it, I'm like, this could have gone really wrong.
Yeah.
If you think about it. You know what I mean? Like, luckily I have a good head on my shoulders and can process all that. But it was just one of those, like, this could have been a really bad thing to show me at that age, you know? So, but everything's good.
So this is about middle school age then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just in, yeah, I was about being high at that point. Yep.
So let me ask you this, and this is, I guess, filmmakers and people that do what we do. We're not always the coolest people, growing up.
Right.
What was middle
Right.
school like that? Did you have a group of friends, or were you just kind of artist by yourself kind of kid, or what?
So I was a strange one. I I fell into the groups of friends, right? Like, everybody, all the cliques and everything. I could mingle with anybody. I was
Mhm.
very social in that aspect. But also, I wasn't like, my best friends weren't players. My best friends weren't, most of my friends were theater kids or something of that nature that were in the
Band
arts,
kids,
that
yeah.
understood what I was doing. Yeah, band. I played in band. My uncle actually taught band, so I played in band. And then I think it was right towards the end of junior high. My dad was very adamant about me playing football. He was like, "You have to play football," like, and I at that point, in my life, I was still in that scenario of I have to impress my father. So, and my mom was like, "You don't have to do that. Like, just because he wants you to doesn't mean you have to." But I did, and I don't regret it. It was fun, but at the same time, I was just kind of like, I could have spent time more focused on what I actually do. But like I said, I don't regret doing it because I learned a lot of lessons, and there was a lot of things that I don't think I would have gotten out of just being in theater, just being in the arts. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it wasn't a bad thing. It was just one of those things. Like, I look back on it going, well, did I really need to? I didn't. I could
yeah.
have done
How long did you
many
do
of
it?
other things.
How long did you play?
Up into my junior year of high school. Actually, so I have really flat feet basically, and they were bothering me pretty bad. They had tried to do inserts and all kinds of stuff, and basically the doctors were like, "Look, like, because there was a moment in my junior year that I could have gone on a full ride um, to Arkansas for football." And I was really considering it, but my feet were hurting, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And so we went to the doctor, and they looked at it, and they were like, "Yeah, if you want to walk after the age of 30, you need to stop playing football now." So
Wow.
I was like, "Okay, well, there's the answer," and so off I went back into, really, really focused down and like, this is what I'm going to do. Quit. I didn't quit. They didn't like, I didn't necessarily quit football. I was still on the roster, but I didn't play. So I was just on like the IR essentially. And that's all I did. Which was fine and it was fun. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to what I really want to do, and focus on that. And like, it kind of just steered me in the right path. So I think it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
I'm happy, put me in the right spot. Let's put it that way. And a lot of things in life have done that strangely. Now that I think about it, have always put me back to where I have wanted to be. And I guess we can get further into that as we go, but it was crazy.
Well, you said what you really wanted to do was that filmmaking at that time. Had you had that really come into your mind yet?
At that time, I mean, it was on my radar and I wanted to do it. Uh, the access point, I guess, that I had. Because, like I said, single mom, it wasn't like we didn't have a bunch of money to go get a camcorder. I didn't have friends I had a friend that had a camcorder, and enough, he was into wrestling. So they would do a lot of backyard wrestling stuff. So I'd be filming that. And it was fun, but it was also kind of like, well, this is weird. Like, why am I filming backyard wrestling? But all right, it was cool. It was fun to be behind the camera and do that. But obviously, theater for me was that access point, and I didn't really have, those friends weren't like I wouldn't be able to go to them and be like, hey. I wrote this little script. Let's go shoot it. You know what I mean? They'd be like, "Oh, that's weird. Why do you want to? What? Like, we're not doing that. Let's go body
Jump,
slam each other." And I'm
yeah,
like,
jump off
"What?"
the roof and DDT
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah. I'm like, "Well, you want to do stunts? Let's go do some stunts. Let's do a fight scene." but yeah, no, they just like, no, that's weird. I was like, all right, whatever. So,
And this was in Baytown still?
yep, still in Baytown. Yep.
And so you're in high school at this point. You're focusing in on the film stuff at this point?
Starting to, was definitely pushing that way. I had started doing a lot of photography because I had a hands on an old camera, a film camera. So I was doing a lot of photos basically, and figuring out lighting and stuff like that, and that was fun. But I hadn't, like a theater was the thing at that point, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go into theater. And at that point, I was, young and dumb and thought, oh, well, I can be an actor and that's what I want to do. And then I figured out, my mom will tell you differently. She's like, no, you're an amazing actor. Every mom's going to tell you you're amazing at everything, and I just realized, I was like, this isn't for me. This isn't what I actually really do enjoy directing. And so that's where I really started to focus in on directing, and directing in the theater. And I remember we did a student play that I got to direct in high school, and that was fun.
Sweet. Yeah, that's sweet. I like
that. Yeah. And then from there, went into college, went into junior college, because I was just sitting there and I was like, I had gotten offers to bigger schools, but I wasn't really ready to move. I wasn't really ready to get out of Houston yet. And U of H hadn't called, so because for scholarship stuff. And so I was like, well, let me just go do junior college for a couple of years. Let me figure it out, make sure this is what I want to do, that I don't want to jump off into business or something,
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to San Jac Central. And so that was cool, did theater there, acted some, which was interesting, and got to direct some while I was there too. And then that was when I got my first intro to film class. And that was cool. And it was fun to get into that realm, and I started realizing more and more, oh, this is what I really want to do. This is really where I want to be,
what was it about film?
So
what was it about that class you think that really that really got you pumped up?
I think it breaks down everything and actually getting to be behind the camera and in front, because we had to do both. Being behind and in front of the camera, being able to do, from a director standpoint, in theater, it's live. You know what I mean? So if something happens, you just got to roll with it. There's no adjustments. There's no cut. Hold on. We had something go on.
Back to your one makeup.
Yeah, exactly. Right. She's sweating. We got to fix this. Yeah. We didn't get that, and I think that really interested me a lot, was that I actually could call cut and be like, hey, hold on, I want to fix this. This isn't right. Let's adjust this, where in theater, you didn't get that opportunity. In theater, it was just kind of like, whatever happens, happens. Once you're live, you're live. It's time to go, So that really did interest me and made me more into film, I guess, is the statement I'm thinking of. More into it and more ready to pursue it more. And then from there, so this first intro film class that we took was with the head of the theater department. So he had RTF, radio television background. Really didn't have necessarily the film, degree. And so after another year, they brought in Molly Vernon, which I don't know if you know her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she's here in Houston. Yeah,
I know Molly.
They brought her. Right, shout out to Molly. They brought her in to teach, and so the next thing you know, I was doing more film stuff with her, and she kind of took me under her wing, because she could tell I was really interested, and that I was actually one of those kids that I actually want to do this. This isn't I'm just taking this to get a credit, And so she took me under her wing. She really kind of showed me more of the ropes. She showed me more of the directing side of it. She actually gave me the opportunity to do my first short, which was cool. And time out, rewind for a second. I had actually done a short before that for another film festival, and this is right when Molly was getting hired. Funny happenstance. I submitted to a film festival. It's called How to Survive a Zombie Apocalypse, right? And it was this fun little. I did this whole like take on the 50s style, that 50s style of like, hey kids, how's it going? And so we shot it
kind of.
very much, right. And it was just a fun little thing that me and a group of friends did. And we submitted it, and it actually won at the festival that it was at,
Oh, wow.
which I was very, very happy about. And Molly was there. I had no idea, right? And so we win. I go to school the next week or week after, and that's when we start our intro to film class. And or not intro, one of the film classes. I can't remember which number it was, but it was with Molly. And I walk in, and she goes, "Wait a minute, didn't you just win at a film festival?" And I was like, "Yeah, were you there?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "That was really cool, but let me tell you what you did wrong." I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, this is how we're going to start this relationship. Let's do this." And so, she saw it, and she said it was very great, but she was like, you used music that was not licensed and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I had no idea at that point. I really didn't know. I was just doing stuff, and having fun with it. So yeah, then she, like I said, right after that, she took me under her wing, and I did another short for a final, and then we did a couple more classes, and I just kind of dived in. You know what I mean? Like I kind of was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. The theater stuff kind of took a back burner, which the head director was kind of upset about. The head of the campus of the theater department. He was kind of upset about it. He's like, because he had spent so much time with me directing in theater and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, this is really where I want to be. Like, this is the fun
When
stuff.
film calls to you, it calls hard. You know what I mean?
It really does, and so many people's stories I hear that,
Yeah.
that it's just one of those things that it's like, once it grabs you, and there is no turning back from it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But after that, sorry, got to get my water in. After that, it was all of a sudden she was like, "Oh, we're bringing this guest speaker in," and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And she was like, "Yeah, he's directed like 3 or 4 features at that point," and I was like, "Oh, awesome," because that's where I want to be. I'd love to meet this guy, right? And next thing you know, we're sitting there, and we go to this, and it was after hours, right? He came in at like 7 o'clock, so anybody who wanted to come could, and basically it was, wasn't for credit, wasn't for anything like that. So me and a buddy went, and all of a sudden Mel House walks in, right?
The Mel House,
And the
H-Town
Mel House.
filmmaker.
House always wins. Shout out, Mel.
Shout out.
He walks in, right? And he does a whole class, right? He's just speaking to us, talking about his experiences, talking about everything that was going on. And
He didn't
he had a
scare
movie
you
coming.
away.
No, actually, shockingly, he didn't. But at that point, he wasn't. The stories he tells now, or at least some of them, I probably would have been. I would have
Yeah,
been a little more. Do I want to do this? Like,
yeah, he's been on he's been on this podcast telling those stories, so that's why I was like, oh, well, hey,
right, yeah. So I mean, but at that point, it was still. I think he was fresh off a Closet Space, or not fresh, but like it had been 6 months to a year since he had done Closet Space, and he was getting ready to do what is now called Psychic Experiment, but was called Walking Distance at that point.
which I believe you can find on Amazon Prime Video.
Yes, yep, Amazon. I think it's still on iTunes, if I remember right. I think you can still get it through Apple.
Hopefully, yeah.
I know I still have it, but I bought it years ago. So he does his speech, does his spiel, and at the end of it, he's like, "Hey, so just so you guys know, I'm doing a movie, and any of you who are interested, I'd love for you guys to come PA, right?" And he's like, "If you're interested, come talk to me at the end of the speech or the end of the seminar, and we'll exchange numbers and everything be good." I was like, "Okay, cool." And that was my moment that I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, because like I was like, this guy's big time in my eyes. You know what I mean? Like, he's done 3 features. He's got one about to come out. I saw the trailer. I was like, holy crap, that looks amazing. You know what I mean? Even for indie, you know what I mean? I was like
Yeah.
that. And at that point,
No, he's good.
you know, we were
Mel's
in,
good.
oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, we were in the indie revolution, not indie, but the digital revolution at that point.
It
And
was about
things were
that time.
starting
It
to,
was about, it was like a '05 ish.
yeah, about oh 05 ish.
Things were
And
converted
yeah,
from film
mhm,
to the DSLR came out. Basically, you could shoot a film much cheaper.
correct.
Basically,
Correct. And we, you know, I had shot on, I never got to actually shoot on film, but I did tape. So like I
Mhm.
did all the tape shooting, right? And learning how to do tape editing and stuff like that. So that was crazy. Which was a lot of fun. You know, nowadays it's like just plug an SD card in and start going, you know, or the codex card from the area or anything like that. You
Yeah,
know, you just plug that in and go, you know, which is awesome. But I wish, and hopefully one day I'll be able to do film. I really, I want to at least do one, you know what I
mm.
mean? So I can say I did it, you know?
I
But,
don't know. I don't know if I want to. It's just
uh,
so good to just cut and just
yeah.
you know, I don't know, but yeah,
Well, even then now, like with cutting off film, I mean, they do a digital import of it now. So they do
yeah.
a digital scan. So, I mean,
You're not gonna
like,
pull out the
even
old
though,
what are the old editing bits called?
um,
What the
uh,
not the Movi, that's something else.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
you
No,
know what I'm talking about.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name right now. Dang it.
Yeah.
Mel would be like, "Oh yeah, it's this," because I've used it a million times.
I've got one right here. He pulls back
Yeah,
a curtain and
I actually think he does. Now
right.
that I think about it, um, but yeah, so you know that was right then the digital revolution, and everything was moving that way. And I think I still had a what was it, Canon GL2.
Hmm.
It was a GL2, which was like, I mean, camera was like this big with a self-mounted on lens, right? And that was when the Red Rock Micro was a big deal. I don't know if you remember
I
that
don't remember that one.
piece.
No.
So instead of like having interchangeable lenses, you would actually mount this onto the. You would take the lens off of the GL or anything like that, and you would mount this gigantic assembly piece that basically turned it into where it could receive any lens,
Hmm.
any film lens, anything like that. The biggest issue with it was is that it ate so much light. It was
Hmm.
insane. I mean, there were times that we could be we could be in a room with the windows open and we would still have to bring a 2K, 2000 watt light in
Yeah.
just to get enough light to expose the image. It was crazy. It was just nuts. But it was fun. You know what I mean? I think I actually still have my Red Rock. I think it's in the closet here. I'll have to pull that thing out because that was an old, it was a fun little memory. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh man, this looks so cinematic and like it looks exactly how we want it to look. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't look like it was shot on digital tape that was just this fixed lens that is
But you
like,
still need pro
all right.
lighting gear. You still need a
You
gaffer on
do.
set
Yeah,
with all
you
his
need all that
gear,
stuff.
you
You
know.
gotta have that stuff, right? Um, so yeah, that was the start of Mel and I's business and you know friendship. You know what I mean? Because I showed up and with my theater background, I quickly moved up, and also I was just hungry. You know what I mean? And I was like, whatever you need, I'm here. You know, you need me, and I was working for free. You know what I mean? I was like, whatever, I don't care. Like, and he put me up at they had got he called it the murder house. You'll have to ask him about it. But it was this house right up the street from his house at that point, and he had the effects guys staying there. I stayed there, and I think maybe one of the actors stayed there. Um, but we were all staying there, and it was just kind of like, I don't care. Like, man, I can move in. I want to be involved. I want to
Yeah.
know what's going on.
Well, it's
I
kind
want
of
to do
cool
this.
too, to just put everybody
You
together,
know,
even if you're local, just being together and that kind of like, because when you're making a
exactly.
movie, you feel you become a family. It's really weird, you know what I mean? Because you really get to
It
know
is.
people, and everybody's seen everybody at their worst at some point, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And at
Oh
their
yeah.
best. But you know,
Absolutely.
so getting everybody
We all.
together. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just saying, getting
Um,
everybody together is kind of a great idea.
it really was, you know what I mean, and it was, and then, like you said, it's the whole family thing, you know what I mean. Like you're this mini film family. I mean, you've got to you're basically living with each other for a month, or however long you're going to be shooting for. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and like you said, you see everybody at their worst, see everybody at their best.
Yeah.
Um, but quickly with my theater background and stage building background and everything else, he was like, "Hey, do you mind helping me build sets?" I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. Let's do it." So we were building sets. Little did I know that like it wasn't normal for the director to be helping, the set crew. You know what I mean? I thought it was strange, but I was like, well, okay, maybe this is normal. I get this is indie filmmaking. I don't know. And then come to find out, later he was like, yeah, and I should have never been doing that. It should have just been you and probably some other people. I was like, well, that's true, but here we are.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it was a fun experience. It was crazy. We did some weird stuff. At one point, there's a real funny story, that me, Melanie, and one other person, we had to get our hands painted yellow, right? Because there was this yellow wall, and the wall is supposed to be bending and melding, and hands are coming through it. And so Mel wanted to do it all practically. So the next thing you know, we're sitting in makeup, getting our hands painted yellow. And there's these holes, and we're sticking them through the walls. And this is right before lunch, right? And we had to come back and do another take. So the fun part about that was we couldn't eat because our hands were covered in paint, and there wasn't really, I was like, I don't want somebody to feed me. I'm fine. I'll just eat after. So they set plates behind for us. But then this guy came out, and Mel was sitting out there chatting with us, and we were laughing and cutting up. And one of the guys came out, and he was eating, and he just ate right in front of us. And he was like, man, this salad, it has bacon in it. It's like, so like, it's amazing. And we're just like, really, dude? Like, really? You're just gonna do this right in front of us? Like, oh man, go away. Like,
Oh
what are you
yeah.
doing? But it was a lot of fun. And yeah, that was my first real foray into filmmaking. And like, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is where I want to be. Um, and from there, it was like, okay, now I'm just going to jump onto any set I can. I had written a couple of things, and so I was shooting shorts, and taking any job I could get my hands on, really. Um, I think at that point, he basically was letting me borrow his camera because he had an HVX, the Panasonic, which
Yeah.
was a little more of a step up. It was 1080, which at that point was amazing. Right. We hadn't
1080p.
really gotten
Holy
into,
crap.
I know.
Not
We hadn't even
720.
really,
1080,
yeah,
everybody.
exactly. It was 1080. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. This
Right.
is where it's at. And, so I was, he would let me borrow it because I had done a lot of work for him, and I was always, I mean, anytime he called, I was like, I'm there, I'll be there, whatever, just tell me when.
And I
Uh,
tell not to cut you off, but I tell everybody because
mm,
people will ask, well, how do I? Everybody has a script or a story, and they want to make it into a movie, right? How do you do it? And I always tell people that, look, if just be available to help other people all the time.
mhm.
As a filmmaker, if you tell me, hey, I want to work on your set, and then I call you once and you're busy, I'm never going back a second time. I'm too busy. Like call
Right, right.
call you again and get a no again. Just the people who always say yes are the people.
Mhm.
On Lion Killer, my movie, um,
Yeah,
you know,
which is amazing, by the way. I just want to
oh,
let you
thank
know I watched it. I loved it.
you. Hear that, everybody? It is amazing. And you know what? Funny thing, this is a great film. Not to take over the podcast, but this is so like indie filmmaking. I discovered Lion Killer in Spanish, full dub.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was never informed that it was being dubbed into Spanish. No
What?
one contacted me, the distributor, nothing. I I turn on like it's like a Spanish channel or Spanish app, and
Right.
there's Regina Ting Chin speaking Spanish to me. This is this
What?
is indie filmmaking. You make something, you send it out into the world. The people that
Right.
you entrust may let you know, they may not.
They may not. Yeah, they may not. Yeah. That's it. That's crazy. But I can relate, and we can definitely get into that too. Of of the craziness that I've ran into with distributors. That's a whole another rabbit hole, but we can definitely get in there.
So you met Mel at what college? What community college was it?
San Jacinto Community College
Okay.
there in Pasadena, Texas.
So you meet Mel at San Jack Community College. He invites you to set. You fall in love with it even more so. Is this correct?
Yeah. I mean, it just dove me into the rabbit hole. So,
So what was next for you?
well, after that, like, Mel had some more things coming up, so I helped him out with those. And then I think it was a couple music videos and some other stuff, pickups for Psychic and stuff like that. And the next thing you know, we're sitting there in his office, right? And at this point, we had started a friendship, you know what I mean? Like, as it happens, and I'm just sitting there at the computer, and I think I had just shown him the short or a couple of the shorts that I did in college, right? And I was like, oh, I just want you to watch them. Just tell me what you think. You know what I mean? Like, and be honest. Like, that's my biggest thing, right? I don't want people to beat around the bush. I don't want you to, tell me it's amazing when it's really not. You know what I mean? Like, if you have issues with it, tell me. I want to hear it, because I always want to grow, right? That's the biggest thing in this industry. Like, if you're not growing, what's the point? And if you're not learning, what's the point? So, he watched them. He gave me his notes, right? And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, not much I can do about it now, but great to know, and I'll remember that for future. And so we're sitting there, we're just chatting, and I think we'd just gotten back from dinner, and like we were talking about other stuff. And the next thing you know, he kind of like turns around in like typical business fashion, right? Like, for some reason I always see these in like film moments, and like he turns around, like, I can't even think of the guy, like a godfather essentially, and he's just like, so you want to make your next movie? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, I'd like to invest, I'd like to do a feature with you. And so that started that. And he goes, look, I have the money. I want you to go write a feature in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay. So at that point, college had kind of become a back burner to me as well. And Mel had also, even at the seminar that he was speaking at, he had told us, he was like, look, he was like, I know I shouldn't say this, but because you should go to college, but at the same time, you don't need to be here. He was like, you need to be on set. You need to be learning. If you really want to do this, this is how you're going to learn. He's like, you're not going to learn half the stuff you need to learn sitting in this film class. Like, you need to go do the work. Right. And so that was the point that I was like, okay, I'm done with school. I'm just going to finish it. Like, didn't even get my degree. I have the hours. I just didn't, there was like 2 classes left, and I just didn't do it. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go right in. I have to. So it was then that I sat down with another friend of mine who was a writer, and we came up with this idea. And the whole Mind Calendar thing was a big deal that year. I remember that. And that was the whole like starting point for this.
2011, 2012-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the whole idea for this, right? It was like, okay, so we're going to write something around this Mind God, and we're going to do a whole bunch of weird body horror, include tentacles. It just got really, really weird. And like, we wrote this script in 2 weeks, like literally. I think I got locked on the ending, and I ended up having to go to Mel for that. I was like, hey, I'm blocked. I don't know where to take. I've got this. I've got the idea for the ending, but I don't know how to write it. And he sat down for like 2 days. Next thing you know, he goes, here's the ending. What do you think? And I read it, and I was like, yeah, I'm behind it. Let's do it. And so that started my first feature. And I'll always, I mean, till the day I die, I will thank that man for what he did for me. You know what I mean? He gave me my first opportunity to shoot a feature and to really understand what it takes, you know what I mean, to direct and to be in that hot seat. But not just that. I mean, we had to do the same thing we did for Walking Distance or Psychic. We had to I mean, I slept maybe 2 hours a night. Some nights we'd wrap. I'd go to our warehouse that we had at that point that we turned kind of into studio, and build sets and flip sets. And like, okay, so today this is the pizza location. This is Star Pizza's bathroom. Because we had to do a bunch of crazy like wall effects and stuff. So this is Star Pizza bathroom. Okay, now in 2 days' time, I have to flip that and make it the house bathroom. I had to build a whole house bedroom, and had to have different decking for like certain times in the script. So indie filmmaking at its finest, you know what I mean? As a director, it's just like, I have to take the reins. I have to do this, I have to make these things happen. And I learned from Mel at that, you know what I mean? As far as like, hey, this is how you have to get it done, and, no pay on that either. You know what I mean? Like, and Mel didn't get paid for Sidekick. I mean, there was, it was one of those things where it's just like, hey, this is the reality. If you really want to do this, you got to do it, so it was fun. It was crazy. And it was just an amazing time. Getting to learn how the practical effects work, which I already had experience, because during Walking Distance, I always call it that. I don't ever like calling it Sidekick. I like Walking Distance. I always loved that title.
Mm-hmm.
But during for Sidekick, I had to actually help the effects guys too. There's a picture that actually I think was in Fangoria, of me with my hands up, and I'm just covered in head to toe in blood. And we had this old abandoned mall that we had a bunch of extras running out of, and we were just flinging guts and blood and all kinds of stuff at them. It was fun, but it was crazy.
No, you have a history of the titles of your films being changed, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Because the one you're talking about now, the one you're talking about that your first film you directed,
correct.
How many name changes? Went through like 2-3 name changes?
It's gone through 3. Yeah, 3. Which is crazy, right? And one of those changes we actually did on purpose. We did that on our own. It was originally entitled Imago, which was kind of like hinting at the whole Mayan thing and leaning into that,
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the other part of this whole story is this movie came out in 2019. We shot it in 2012. So if that doesn't tell you like how long it took us to really get there and get it done, because it was just a long journey, our practical effects guy was good, but I think he was a little overwhelmed as far as how much we had to actually do.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of issues with that, right? Which then turned into, okay, well, and VFX at that point, it was good, but it was not to really have it to have great VFX. It cost it cost a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
money. You know what I mean? It's not like now where, hell, I know people that are reaching out to guys on Fiverr and getting VFX that are amazing. You know what I mean? Which is insane, right?
Yeah.
Like, used to be you could only go to a VFX house. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's what they did. So there was that. Plus, our VFX supervisor just kind of bailed on us at the last moment. So it was me and Mel kind of just going, well, we know that this is what we should be shooting as far as plates and stuff like that to be able to achieve the VFX, which, mind you, was right, but we were missing things, right? Because we actually ended up with a really good VFX house, who did a great job for us at the end, and actually gave us some amazing visual effects. But he was like, yeah, you missed this. I really wish I would have been on set, because this could have been a lot easier and a lot cheaper. Because he wouldn't have to be rotoing so much,
Yeah.
rotoscoping and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it was crazy, right? It was just a long journey, to the point that Sadie, who is our young Jennifer, right? She was, I don't even want to say how old she was because I can't remember. She was little, right? Probably young adult, right? Probably 12. I think 12. Yeah, that makes sense because we shot pickups in 18 and she was an adult. And it was kind of like that, the movie, Childhood. Am I saying that right? I can't remember the name of the movie,
Boyhood.
but Boyhood. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was like the movie Boyhood, where like, and it wasn't intentional, but it worked out, and it was like, we can do this really weird, crazy in her mind sequence now that Sadie is an adult. She's no longer young Jennifer. She is still young, but she's not, she's an adult now. And so we did that. And it was so funny too, because we talked about all the time, because Natalie and Sadie looked so much alike as young Jennifer and Jennifer. Natalie brought a picture of her as a child and put it up against Sadie, and it was like, holy crap, that's almost identical. And then as adults, I mean, they same everything. Like, it's just crazy how much they look alike. So it's nuts. But we shot pickups and got some really cool stuff. I mean, granted, right, we're going from HVX with Red Rock, 1080p, to now everything can shoot in 4K. It's DSLRs, right? It's, you don't have to have an Alexa to get 4K. You know what I mean? An Arri Alexa. You can just shoot it on DSLR, right? So we were dealing with that too. Everything, and, everything had advanced so much in 7 years, And so it was just crazy. And it was crazy going back and going, okay, well, now we have to like actually reprocess all this stuff to 4K. Right, because that's the limit. They got to have that just to release it. So we had to figure all that out. Which is a long journey, but one that I'll never forget, and one that I'm happy to have had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it taught me everything not to do. You know what I mean? And it taught me everything to go, okay, I'm never doing that again. Or if I do that again, we're gonna have money. You know what I mean? That's how we're gonna do this. We're not gonna try to shoot that on an indie budget level like that.
Yeah,
However, I'm
taking on VFX on an indie budget is always going to be super challenging. I tell people, just if you can't do it practically, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and like I said, however, I'm still proud of that film. I'm still proud of what we did and what we made.
Oh, I love it. And it is available for the people out there, right? Where can people find it? And what's the current title?
I would say, speaking of name changes, which I'm still, I'm not happy with the poster or the name change that the distributor did. Speaking of distribution and crazy things they do to you. It is called, well, this is how much I don't like it. Hold on one second. Give me a sec.
You guys had a sweet, the poster I liked was right before the distributor,
Blood.
In the Blood. That poster was sweet. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that was our name. So that was our name change to the Jump 7 years, right? That was our name change for that, because we were like, hey, like, we just need to put a new title on this. We can't call it Imago anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so we did, and it worked.
Is it called like Dark Realm or something now?
Dark Ritual. That's
Dark Ritual. There it is.
Thank you. He
doesn't know the title to his own movie, everybody. And he's on a podcast, hopefully to promote it.
Well, and part of that too, and this is kind of where I could probably get a little dark on that, is that, like, we made this distribution deal, right? And we thought, okay, this was right in the height of COVID. They were looking for anything, right? And we thought, okay, cool. We weren't expecting to make millions, right? But we're at least expecting to make our budget back. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, we kind of got bamboozled. They really didn't do a good job. We're still paying for stuff that we really shouldn't be paying for, like marketing. Literally, like, we're paying for marketing and they haven't done anything for us, so that's a whole nother animal that you and I can have a convo about. But yeah, it's like, it's just not good. And, Mel and I have tossed it around a million times to, like, what can we do to fix it? However, I still want people to watch it. Like, I would love for anybody that's watching this, please go watch it. Like, regardless of the darkness the little cloud that's around it, I still would love people to watch it and at least, experience it and see what
Yeah.
people think, because the ending is, and we did this on purpose too. The ending is so left open, and it's to you as the audience. What do you think? It
Yeah.
was one of the first ones. I think there wasn't really a whole bunch of movies doing that at that point. And I was like, well, let's just leave it to the audience. Let's see what they think. What happens? Is she crazy? Is she not? Did this happen? Did what you're gonna watch? Did that happen? Did it not? Is it all in her head? You know. So, and that's what I love about that movie, and I still to this day I'm proud of it. It's just one of those where I'm like, I just wish we could have, because there was a whole Indie Darling story that could have come behind that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like the idea of, hey, we spent 7-8 years on this thing, and we stuck it through. We didn't back off. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like Mel and I put our blood, sweat, and tears into that movie to get it done, and our own, blood, sweat, tears, and our own money at that point, because the investment was gone, right? Like the financing was gone. It was all on us at that point for after the first year. It was me and Mel making it work, so it's just crazy when you think about it.
So then how did you transition into what you're doing now, which is mostly first AD work?
Right. So after that, things kind of slowed down a little bit. You know what I mean? I was still looking for jobs and stuff, but it wasn't like I was making millions and I wasn't getting directing calls every day. You know what I mean? So
Tell me about it.
I had to find right. Mel's Mel the same thing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it was one of those where it was, okay, I have to find a day job. You know what I mean? I got to have revenue. I can't just sit at home and not make money, So I found a day job and I was working, and on the side, I was still doing anything I could do film, you know what I mean? Weekends, whatever. If a big job came through, I would actually take off work and not care and it really wasn't a care to me if I lost my job. It was like, no, this could be the next step. This could take me the next thing. Right. And so progressing through that and getting through all that, that's when I think this was 2016. I think it was 16, if I remember right, or 15. I'd have to look it up, but I think it was 15 or 16. Mel called me and he was like, hey, I have this movie in Vegas. I want you to be on it. And I was like, okay, cool. And he was like, you'd be second AD. And I was like, well, I've never done that job. Like I've done G&E, I've done special effects, I've done all these other things, right? And learned from some of the best as how to do it, But as far as like, I've never been an AD. I don't know if I really want to do that. You know what I mean? And he was like, look, just come out and do it. He was like, I know you can do it. I have all faith in you, because you've basically ran sets before without knowing you've done it. I was like, okay, cool. Which second AD, you're not really running the set, you're running talent, handling all that. I was like, okay, that's fine. So we went out there and oh crap, I forgot about a whole nother movie. Oh, we'll go back to that. But yeah, so this was all in the moments of me and Mel being on the road, what created Barely Living the Dream, the podcast that we did for a long time, stuff like that. And basically we were just constantly going out, and Mel was getting the first AD position normally, which was fine, whatever. But Vegas was a specific one, and I was always just second AD or something like that. And Vegas was the specific one that I had to jump into the first AD position, which, if I remember right, I think he's told you this story, and I don't know if he told it on the podcast, but the
I believe
episode
so.
that he had in Vegas.
I believe he did. But he's told it to me, so I could be getting confused. I don't think it's a big secret.
No, he's pretty open about it, so I don't think it's a big deal now. I mean, he basically had an episode where it almost killed him. It was kind of crazy. And the next thing you know, I'm thrown into the first AD spot. And it's like, okay, Chris, you got to do this. Like, cause I physically can't. Okay. And so I jumped in. Right. And the DP at that time on that one was Mark David. And he was very impressed at how I ran the set. And when I told him, I was like, look, man, this is kind of my first not really first time, because I'd been ADing other things and smaller little indie things, right? But that one was kind of crazy, right? And next thing you know, he was like, "Well, I want you on all my shows. I want you on all my shows. Period. Like, you're gonna AD all my shows." Okay, cool. And I was like, "Well, I must be doing something right." So I ended up just really diving into it, you know what I mean, and started going and going and going. I was like, first AD, first AD, first AD, and Mel was just handing them to me at that point. Um, and so that's where I kind of landed in the first AD position, and I just started doing it and doing it, and kept going, right? And now my name's out there as a first AD, right? And that's where it started, where it culminated, and now I guess I'm good at it because I make a living at it, you know. But like Mel says, and like I'll say it too. It's a thankless job. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people don't really realize about being an assistant director, not assistant to the director, assistant director, right? It's a thankless job in a lot of ways. Now, granted, I will say I've been on several sets now where people are very thankful to me. But it used to not be that way. I mean, literally, we'd be running set, we'd be making sure people are safe. You're basically the dad on set, you know? And at the end of the day, you don't really get a lot for it, you know? I mean, yeah, sure, your name's second build on the credits, you know what I mean? After the UPM normally, or the line producer.
Mhm.
But that's it, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, if the director likes you, that helps, right? You get another job, but it's not like you're not you don't get all the glory, you don't get all the
Yeah.
fame.
No one
Artistically,
ever
it
says,
definitely isn't.
did you see that movie? Man, the first
Right.
AD
That first
killed
AD,
it.
God, he killed it. Like, how did he do that? Like, nobody talks about that, right? Nobody
Yeah.
does. So artistically, right, it's not fulfilling. You know what I mean? However, I do enjoy it. And I mean, Mel has said several times, like, there's this, and hinting to the jujitsu stuff. He's like, there's this mental jujitsu, Chris, that you just master, and like you can maneuver. And I don't like saying manipulate because it's not me. I'm not a manipulator. I don't like doing that. But like, maneuver people and get
Yeah.
them to do things and move in ways that a lot of people can't. I'm not a yelling AD, right? Like, there's the old stereotype of ADs is they all yell, and that's,
Yeah.
they're red in the face and their shelf life is 50 years and that's it and they're done. I don't do that. I don't like to yell. First of all, why do I need to get my blood pressure up for a job? You know what I mean? You shouldn't have to, right? And I gain the respect of the crew, and I say, trust me, get behind me. We're gonna get this done, and we're all gonna go home at a decent hour. You know what I mean? But you just got to get behind me and follow me. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, that's the parts that I enjoy. I enjoy puzzle solving too. Like, I enjoy whenever I get a phone call and they're like, "Hey, so this actor actually changed their dates on us. We have to, instead of 7 days, we have to condense them down to 5. Is it doable?" And I'd sit there and I'm just manipulate that. I'll
Yeah.
manipulating the schedule and making it work, right? And figuring out how to make it work and make it work for the budget, because that's the other thing too, right? Like, we have to think about, even though we're not producers, we have to think about budget. We have to think about, okay, well, they only have this much time, this much money. We have to make this work, right?
Yeah.
So that's fun, but artistically, it's not fulfilling, right? Like, unless you're on one of those shows where you're with a first time director who kind of really is leaning on you, as the first AD who has had experience on set with directing,
Mhm.
because I do have directing experience, and leaning on the director of photography to really help them see their vision through, right?
But he still gets all the
Um,
credit, the director.
he does. He still gets all the credit, right?
or
And you
or
don't.
he gets all the blame. So that is,
That's the part to me that I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with it,
yeah.
because some of these shows I'm like, oh, this is gonna get torn apart.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And I know it is.
when
You could
putting
see it.
putting it together, you're
Yeah.
like, well, you mentioned mental jujitsu. Have you done any actual jujitsu?
I have not, actually.
Or any
I
martial art at all?
did. I've done so. I trained in Jeet Kune Do for
Okay,
like
me too.
6 months. Yeah,
Okay, where
six
at?
months.
Here,
It
here in the
wasn't.
Houston area?
Yeah, it was actually a former. He didn't have a dojo or anything like that. It was a former. It was a former, not Secret Service, but like Black Ops guy that had
Yeah.
trained in Jeet, and he really wanted to. He really wanted to open one, and so he started having classes like basically in his backyard, right?
Mhm.
And so I was training.
Well, that's very common in Jeet Kune
Um,
Do. It's very Jeet Kune Do has a very garage culture, training a
right,
garage culture around it. Five
right.
guys in a garage kind of situation, or a backyard if you don't have a garage.
hmm Which that was fun, but then I got busy with film and everything else, and I was just like, well, I want to keep going, but I can't, And then I lost touch with them, and we just never got to be able to do it again. And then Mel being in jits, doing boxing, stuff like that, and I'm like, dude, I want to train, like I want to start learning the jujitsu. So and I've always been a big fan of UFC and everything else too. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is all stuff that I want to learn. So once again, I want to come train. So
Please do, man. Come
hopefully we can
train.
make that work.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah, man. Come
yeah,
get that work in at Axiom Jiu
absolutely.
Jitsu in Missouri City. But
Heck yeah.
so
Um,
have you done any have you worked on any features that have martial arts in them, or
I actually have funny. I have. There's been two movies. One we did in Oklahoma that had Danny Trejo in it. We
mm,
had some martial arts guys in that did some martial arts work. It was really fun. And then there was another one. What was it? I can't think of the name. So many movies like go through your brain. I'm trying to remember that one. Um, I'm sure what second we get off here, I'll remember it. But yeah, so there's been two movies that we had martial arts in, and that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch and watch them train. Oh, that was it. So it was this movie we shot in Colorado. It's called uh, Dirty Rotten Tofu and the Gohan Girls, and so it's spaghetti western, but it's
mm-hmm,
all Asian,
mm-hmm,
and which was freaking awesome, right? All like three female lead cast, doing martial arts, doing squibs, I mean, it was just, you name it, we had it, right? And it was all set in the West, which up in Silverton, Colorado, it's still, everything still looks like it's still in those days, right?
mm-hmm.
It's just amazing.
Is it out yet?
Um, I
Is
don't
that
think it's
film?
out yet.
Yeah.
I think it's still in post. I know they were, well, it may be out of post. I know they were submitting to festivals, the last thing
Mhm.
I heard. So, but that was another one that was really, really cool and fun to work on. And like, you get to work with your stunt coordinator, which was Phil Tan. Phil Tan's done all kinds of things. His son is actually the lead in Mortal Kombat,
Mm.
the new one.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Lewis, yeah, Lewis Tan. He's also in the second season of Shadow and Bone.
Mm.
Um, Phil's worked on. I mean, if you look him up, it's just all kinds of stuff. He's done everything, right? He's definitely a stunt. He is a stunt coordinator that is like a legend in the realm of stunt coordination. Um, so he was awesome to work with. It was great to see like just how they worked everything out and working together with him to make sure everybody was safe. Yeah, just a fun time.
Well, let me ask you this. Um,
Yeah,
at this point in your career, you, you're not a rookie anymore. You've got some some stripes, you know what I mean? So
hmm
what's next for you? Are you going to shoot another feature, or what's on the horizon?
So it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I actually am planning on probably in October, depending because we just got Texas just got the incentive. We
Oh,
just
did
got
that
approved for
pass?
200. Yeah, it passed. We
Oh,
got
it
200
passed.
million approved.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So that could change the date because we may move it to here
Hmm.
for the incentive. But I do have a dark horror comedy feature called Seasoned Killers that we will be shooting in October. Hopefully, that's the plan. So I'll be directing.
Cool. Is
So I'm
Mel
very
going to be?
excited about that.
I'm sure Mel will be helping you out with that a little bit, huh?
Yeah, as much as he can. He's pretty tied up with in betweening and everything else.
Yeah.
But him
He
and I have
actually
been talking.
He had to get wild lines from me. I have a very small part in the movie. But at the
Yeah.
jujitsu school, at my jujitsu school, he brought the Zoom, and I think I was going through paperwork. He just like put the Zoom recorder. I did like he said like give me three, but I think I gave him like five or six different takes on it. You know what I mean? But as I'm going through
Nice.
paperwork, just doing he's always working. So but
Always.
that's what it is to be an indie filmmaker. I know we all have a vision of I'm going to make my first feature. I'm going to be ushered into Hollywood. I'm going to be the new Spielberg. I'll be given final
Yeah.
cut. I'll only work with
Yeah.
A-list actors. You know what I mean? This is the dream, right? But the truth
It's
is,
the dream.
it's
Right.
just like jujitsu. Like the dream is you're going to do your first jujitsu class and you're going to be this jujitsu phenom. The truth is you're going to be horrible at it and get
Right.
and
Right.
and it's going to break you down mentally, physically, and spiritually. So will filmmaking.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I mean, I couldn't agree with that any more than, like, I mean, honestly, it is to say there have been moments in my life, and especially in this career choice, there have been moments where I was like, am I doing the right thing? Is this really what I want to do? You know what I mean? There's been multiple of those that multiple times that's happened, and yeah, I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all been broke trying to figure out what the next move is, how to get food on the table. I mean, so here's a perfect example of that happening. Me and my wife, we get married. I was still at a day job at that point. We go on our honeymoon. I come back and literally the day I get back, they let me go. Right. They're like, hey, sorry, we can't afford to keep you on anymore. We got to let you go. I'm like, holy crap, what am I going to do? Now, granted, I had some film stuff lined up. So I knew that there was some money coming in the door, but I was like, it's not going to be enough to sustain. Right. Next thing you know, Mel calls me. He's like, hey, we're going to LA. I've got this job. I've got this job coming up. I hadn't even had the chance to tell him yet that I had lost my job. He was, are you cool with that with your job? I was like, yeah, I'm great with that. Don't worry about it. I'm good. And then I told him and he was like, oh, perfect. He was like, let's do this. Like, we're just going to keep going. So it's crazy. And once again, life steering me in the right direction. You know what I mean? Saying, hey, you never needed that day job. You had to get in it, you know what I mean? And go. And here I am, so
So
it's
so
just,
what would be your advice to filmmakers out there or anybody pursuing maybe an artistic career? Maybe they're where you were, they're sitting in college, they're
mm-hmm,
doing what they're supposed to be doing,
mm-hmm.
but their spirit calls for something more. What's your advice to those people?
I would say listen to your gut. Don't give up. It's not going to be easy. You know what I mean? Most of us that do get in this career and actually make it a career, it takes 10 years. You're not going to get it in the first year, unless you're, I don't even think Blum, I don't even think he got it in the first year. You know what I mean? I think he had been doing this for years before Paranormal Activity came out, before any of those, any movie like that. Spielberg, same way. I mean, he didn't just all of a sudden, overnight was a success. You know what I mean? Like, granted, Jaws took him there, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
all those movies took him there, but he had to work to get there, right? It didn't just fall in his lap. So stay hungry. Don't give up if you really want to do it. And listen to your gut if you're in school. You know what I mean? If your gut's telling you, hey, this is what I want to do, go for it. And I don't like telling people to get out of school. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if filmmaking is really what you want, you're probably not going to learn everything you need to learn in film school. Like, you do need to get out there and you do need to get on some sets and learn
Yeah,
from people that are actually in the industry.
absolutely.
And not that I'm saying anything bad about teachers in the film industry, because there are several that I know that have been in the industry and then decided to go teach because they just needed that steady income. You know what I mean? And I get that. Um, so yeah, I just would say definitely stay hungry, listen to your gut, and really, really just, you know, keep going. Don't let anything stop you. And always learn. Always learn. Like, if you're not learning in this industry, there's just no point in my opinion, because you can always learn something new. Always there. I mean, I'm still learning new stuff, that includes technology. You know what I mean? Everything's advancing. Everything's always updating, upgrading. I mean, for crying out loud, we're getting LEDs now that are brighter than 4,000 watt HMIs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. Cameras that can shoot 12K.
Yeah.
Why we need 12K, I don't understand. We have cameras that can do it. Our eyes don't see that.
Yeah.
We don't see that depth. Yeah.
And I don't think there's a television that could
no
project it either. So
no, they say 8K now, but I mean, even that, our eyes can't tell the difference between that high up of resolution. And nothing's being released in that resolution. It's still in 4K because it still has to be streaming, right? So yeah, I mean, just learn, just stay learning, stay hungry. Don't give up. Don't give up on it unless there's just something major that makes you have to. You know what I mean? Follow your heart, follow your gut, follow your dreams. So you'll get there. Man. Just takes time.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today, man, and wish you all the success in the world. I know you're killing it, and want to wish you well on the new feature. I definitely want to hear more about that as you're getting ready to shoot. So let's stay in touch, man, and come roll jujitsu or do some kickboxing with me, whatever. I'm down here in Los City. All right, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, see you soon, man.
All right, brother.
And that's my conversation with H-Town filmmaker Chris Warren. If you want to connect with him, his links are in the description. You can also follow my new graphic novel, The Gentleman's Guild. Yes, I'm making a graphic novel. It's called The Gentleman's Guild with artist E. Canales. You can sign up for the mailing list now. The link for that is also in the description. And don't forget to watch Lion Killer, my debut feature film. That's right, I made a movie. It's called Lion Killer. It stars Regina Ting-Chen, who's currently on season 4 of Stranger Things. You can watch it at Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, Freevee, or you can pop on over to the Roku channel. Before you go, make sure you like this video, comment down below, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and share on your social media. Till next time, peace.